and so had we.
All right, girls, it's time to honor our martyrs.
Sons and daughters of Iran, the war has taken the most worthy in the land. The truth shall rise from their blood spilt in the sand. For whom did they die? For us. For us.
Hey! Martyr! 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 I am not worthy. Put me out of my misery.
Satrapi, what are you doing?
I'm suffering. Isn't it obvious?
Get to class, move it!
When it comes to the Iranian Revolution, another that comes to mind, because of her style of portraying everything that happened in the Persian country during that time, is Marjane Satrapi. Born in Rasht, Iran in 1969, Satrapi was only 9 years old when the revolution took place in the country in 1979. In her graphic memoir, Persepolis, Satrapi captured the whole political process through her eyes as a 9-year-old, and as the novel progresses, so does the knowledge that both Marjane and the reader have, becoming increasingly complex. And throughout the novel, many topics arise related to the consequences of war, ideological changes, and regimes ruled by extremist religion. Nevertheless, one of the topics present throughout the entirety of the book is the avoidance of truth. People always try to ignore the bad things happening, even if that means ignoring the reality. Governments have always used information manipulation to control the population. They do this by mainly controlling what information gets to them and what information doesn't. This method of controlling the population by censorship has been used throughout time in many nations, such as Nazi Germany in the Second World War, or even Great Britain during the same period. Governors, such as Adolf Hitler and Winston Churchill, would modify the way things happen during war to keep the population calmed down. At this point, it is noticeable that those governments utilized propaganda for means of control. In the context of Marjane, the Iranian government constantly modified news and conflict results during the Iran-Iraq war to keep the population under control and make them believe that they were the winning country every time. As an example, it is not until Marjane's family goes to a trip to Spain that they see the real situation of the war, a dark cloud covering the country. Another example of this is the excessive creation of martyrs to justify the war and the death of thousands of Iranian men. During most of the novel, Marjane is a victim of the process. She's naive and she does not understand manipulation, until his dad criticized local radio for giving wrong statistics of an event, exposing her own child as an example of how society is ignorant because of misinformation. On the other hand, the government is not the only organism that hides the truth from the population. Society's ideology itself would be manipulated to change its perception. With a wealthy minority and a predominant low social class, the government would take advantage of that sector's ignorance so that they would fight for their country and win their key to heaven. That would directly affect society's opinion on what a hero is. It is important to mention the creation of martyrs again. For society, it becomes an honor to become one. Furthermore, to know someone who has a family member that became a martyr was something to be impressed about. Marjane does not realize the consequences of martyrs until one of her classmates' dad dies in the war. She says, "I would prefer him alive and in prison than dead and a martyr." These words would change Marjane's perspective from now on. Clash of ideologies and religion was between those who were avant-garde, modern people influenced by external cultures, mostly from the West, and those who strongly subverted the extremist religion of Islam imposed by the regime after the Iranian Revolution. These extremist believers did not allow other beliefs than that weren't Islam. This can be seen in the veil chapter. The imposition of the hijab for all women can be clearly observed, even if they didn't originally practice a religion. At the same time, and for Marjane's mother's surprise, one of Marjane's neighbor, who once wore a miniskirt during the Shah regime, started wearing a full-body veil after the revolution. Marjane considered herself a religious believer, so much that she even wanted to become a prophet as a kid. Nonetheless, as she grew up and started to understand how extremism was present in her culture, she started to relegate from it, reaching a limit in which she didn't know what to believe at one point in her teenage years. Truth is a very manipulable aspect within society. The truth for each person can be different. With truth manipulation, governments can control the information that reaches society and are able to project the ideals that they want, to create misinformation, and with this, make society easier to control. Besides the government prohibiting and controlling information so that people cannot know the truth of the events that are happening around them, society manipulates its own ideology to change the connotation of truth. No one wants to accept that truth, as Marjane mentions in the novel. Each person can have their own ideology that they will consider as true, even though nothing can be really considered as an absolute truth. Although ideological thoughts can sometimes be imposed through fear and by taking away people's free will.